Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. You guys know who it is. This is Tony Lynch. I'm the host of this podcast, and we are your number one podcast for bringing you conversations around death, down, and grief, and all the messiness that comes in between there with some amazing people that's not only out here talking the talk, but they're walking the walk and out here help making a difference in people's lives and healing, finding resources and support. I have another amazing guest from you guys, and this woman is the true definition of coming from trauma to triumph, and she is out here doing some amazing things. Now, before I bring her up here, I would like to say, if this is your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head on over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode. But most importantly, if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversations that we have, do me a favor, share them along with them, right? And also, now, before I bring on my next guest, I would like to say that this is a live stream event. Please put your questions and comments in the comment section. We'll be sure to answer them as we go. Now, without further ado, this is for educational purposes only, all right? Now, guys, help me welcome my next guest, Sarah Shaffer, to the show. Sarah, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Tony. Thank you so much for having me. It is fantastic to connect with you.
It's such an honor and a privilege even to have you on the show. I was looking at some of your credentials. I was like, holy crap, she's out here, man, she's definitely out here doing it. And then since the first time that we talked, I was like, man, I can't wait to talk even more. We just had a great time, didn't we?
Absolutely. It's the it's the honest and the raw and the real.
Yes.
We are all out here, and I love to reference what goes on in here as your dumpster fire.
Right.
Nothing but a rolling dumpster fire after a rolling dumpster fire. And we need strategies on how to manage them. And these honest conversations bring up those uncomfortable topics that we're afraid of. And we're afraid of them because it's a perception of what they're going to be.
Right.
And that will not be reality until we get into it.
Well, and I also I'm add to that because you're absolutely right. But there's a lot of stigma that come around it too, right? When we start talking about what's going on up here, there's a lot of stigma that people are saying, oh, you must be crazy or something like that, right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And as a woman, now what we're acknowledging and recognizing is that the emotional responses to trauma are not psychiatric illnesses. They are two very different things. And so just speaking as a woman, overreactive, emotional, hypersensitive, all of these things, well, you must be bipolar, you're up and down. When you're in a situation, whether it's something from childhood or a current abusive situation or whatever, you're up and down because your fight, flight, and freeze, she's been on fire for a long time, and she doesn't know the difference and how to manage that. So we need to engage in these conversations and normalize the messy, normalize the dark and spooky.
Yeah.
Because we all got it.
Before we get too far into this, introduce yourself to the audience, right?
That's how much I love these conversations.
Oh my God, look, and we both know, right? It's like we could go. It's like, as soon as you were saying that, I started coming up with 5 to 6 different questions that I was like, you know what? Let me pump my brakes a little bit. I need Sarah to introduce herself and tell what she is and where she's and about the work that she does. And then we're going to get into this conversation. We're going to bust this thing wide open.
We are. So thank you, Tony. Yeah, I have been a social worker for 25 years in the hospital, acute care, been there, seen it all, ER trauma. And within that, I had a 15-year career with United Healthcare. We kind of squeeze in a little bit of the corporate and the things that we're looking at now, the authorization programs and those kinds of things I was a part of. And within that career, I'm an abuse survivor of my father. And we'll get into why that is such a hot topic.
Yeah.
And all the gloriousness that comes from that. all of the bad decisions, the eating disorders, and all of the family mucky muck, which we all have. We've all got it.
Yeah.
And fast forward to just being a high achiever, was living in New York, was there for 9/11. And for me, all of the past was building up to a very significant substance abuse problem. And 9/11, in my version of my stories, was the catalyst to really skyrocket it. And it was on. And, you know, I married my husband and we had our first child, and he came out of me spinning cartwheels. And so, of course, I expected that to be time number 2. My youngest has a rare disease, a 1 in 250,000 recessive genetic disease, and he required a stem cell transplant, which was the only treatment cure for it, which he had at 7 months old. The disease left him completely blind in his left eye, partially blind in his right, missing 14 teeth, and is now diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So that rolling dumpster fire that we refer to, you know, and up until May of 2021, from my son's rare disease, I developed a foundation because the disease was so rare. I developed the first and only public blood donation program in the Philadelphia area because there wasn't any, and he was transplanted but donated umbilical cord stem cells. And I was drinking the entire time. I mean, just dousing myself and becoming one Tasmanian devil tornado after another. And I got sober in 2021, and, you know, after losing 2 jobs, had to rebuild myself. Got myself back into the hospital, started doing the hospital social work, and I branched out and wanted to do coaching in a way that is inclusive, to the point that I've been there, I've done it. There is not really anything someone's going to bring to the table that's going to surprise me. I've either said it, done it, thought it, or felt it, you know.
Wow.
And to let someone know that there is a place that they're not going to be judged. All the craziness that goes on in here, and it's on repeat cycle. And we ignore it, and it gets too crazy. We can't think clearly and make rational, good decisions in our lives because we're so buggered up here. And it's the verbal vomit. You have to just get it out. And to know someone has been there to say, you know what? Yeah, my father was the one who abused me, or my mother, or whatever. A parent as the abuser is on a different level because the general public cannot bring it to the forefront of their mind. They can't, that a parent would do this. You know, so, and that's what keeps us so far back.
Right.
Because it's so shameful. At least that's what you feel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And no one talks about it. Everybody's got their story. And I'm not saying everybody has an abuse story by parent, but there's big chunks in people's lives, and they look different, but those emotions and those responses are very, very identifiable.
Right.
And we use those coping skills at the time when we need them. And we have to be able to take a step back and identify that, okay, this coping skill, it helped me survive. It was necessary at the time, but it's not serving me any purpose anymore.
Yes.
And with my book that's coming out, The Dumpster Fire Diaries, is in this, I just thought about this yesterday as I was doing some promotional stuff, and they said, the fire doesn't define you. What you do next does. And it's that level of acceptance. So that raw honesty and that acceptance of, yeah, I made a lot of mistakes, a lot.
Well,
you know, and I've owned every single one of them.
Yeah. Well, I want to add to that, right? Because I mean, you look back on it now and recognize that
you're a little frozen. You're a little frozen right now.
Okay, can you see me?
No, I can see your picture. It's frozen. Now you just moved. There we go.
All right. So yeah, it's something going on with these internets nowadays. These internets are just crazy.
All of them. Don't even get me going on that one. Tony, you and I could go down a whole rabbit hole.
We already know.
That's a different podcast.
That's a different podcast. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that some other time, because we don't want them to come back in and be like, oh yeah, y'all talking smack, right? We don't need that right now. We don't need to mess with us right now.
No, I ruffled enough feathers.
Yeah, right. We're about to ruffle some feathers because as you were speaking and as you was talking about that, I started thinking about a few forms of trauma, right? You got the family trauma, you know what I'm saying? That normally, the one that everybody says, oh, don't say nothing to no one, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the one and I think that's the most damaging one for the simple fact of you can't, they don't normalize it and people know that it happens. That's the crazy part. Right. And so when people get caught for doing stuff, they're like, oh, I didn't know. But then they don't really act surprised. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I've been around conversations with people like, well, I knew eventually he was going to get caught. Hold on. What are you talking about? Or right. She's going to get caught. All those different things. So that's one form of trauma right there. You know what I'm saying? The family, the hidden trauma. Right. Mm-hmm. Then you have the fluctuated trauma. So as an adult, and what I mean by that, and please let me know, say what you think about these things, but the fluctuated trauma, as I believe that as adults, what we tend to do, we tend to, depending on the situation and the trigger that arises, the trauma will fluctuate to the age that it happened in. Right?
You are exactly right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And the third one, I know there's more. As I'm talking, I'm thinking about more, but I'm thinking about the three basic ones that have the most damage. But you're also looking at communal trauma, right? And right. Communal trauma, I believe, is a shared trauma where you may be around many other people that are going through similar things. As they say, birds of a feather flock together, right?
Right.
And so you may be surrounded by other people that have gone through similar things, but the problem is that they sit quietly without, without saying anything. And it normally takes an individual like yourself, Sarah, to go in there and go, no, let's open up the doors. Let's crack this show wide open and let's right. begin to have the conversation. So those are the three ones that I've come up with. Tell me what your thoughts are on that, because I know we can go deeper into it, but I want to know what your thoughts is. This is like your lane.
We could, and it's you're exactly right that you go down. There is always that inner child, inner person, inner soul, whatever you want to call it, and she's been in there guiding you. And what happened was we were geared. We don't listen. We don't listen to this spidey sense. Okay, and she's always been right. So the trauma where you revert down to her, when she wasn't paid attention to, and if it hasn't been addressed, that's when she blows up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, this morning, my husband, his calls go on Skype, okay? And back when Mason was transplanted, that's how you communicated, on Skype. That was, you got to have the video. That ring? The ringtone of Skype. So yeah. Today is Rare Disease Day, so it's been a very kind of heightened day for me. And I heard that sound, and instantly there was a pit in my stomach.
Mm.
And I could picture, I was in the room, I could smell it, I could everything. So you are dropping back. But what the skills become, because those triggers, we can't make them go away. We can't. And so the skill is, and the strategy is okay, that took me down, but I don't have to live there. All right, come right back up. I got it. I know what that emotion is. I know what that feeling is. And it doesn't serve me a purpose anymore to get all buggered up.
So I love that you brought that up. And it made me started to think, in a lot of ways, the disassociation that people have when those triggers do come up, because I think we get so used to wearing a mask or throwing a sheet over top of it that it's almost become normalized not to say anything, right? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's okay, which leads us to other things, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you said, the dumpster fire up here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it also leads to coping, unhealthy coping mechanisms. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of the most common ones: alcoholism, drug use, promiscuity, right?
Check, check, check.
Okay. So and the reason why I say that, because now I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus. I'd rather throw myself under the bus before I do that. So my form of, I had two forms of dealing with trauma that I did when, as you was talking about it, it really made me dawn on it. Now, have I gone back and healed them? I have. Because I became more aware of the things that I was doing, and I had to discipline myself. So one of them was alcoholism, right? So I was an alcoholic for a long time. I didn't realize that until I woke up one day and I was like, why do I have a tall boy and a half a bottle of tequila in my hand and it's only 2 o'clock, right? And I haven't gone to sleep and I still got to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go to work. So I'm going to drink this and go to work and buy something else. I said, no, that was my first, looking back on it now, I realized that was one of my trauma responses. And the other side was promiscuity, right? You know what I'm saying? So sleeping around, one night stands, etc. But now that I say that, I have to put this in there. My other form of trauma response was also violence.
Right.
So and I think that was a more, people would say aggressive, but for me it was a more simpler form of expression of my emotions, right?
Well, I think so. What happens is, and I say for Gen X, we stuff, remember the Spanx, and we just stuff everything into it, and we expect that everything's going to disappear. We're going to look fabulous. And it's really just bubbling out everywhere. You got some back fat, you can't feel your legs, and it's just horrible. And what holding all this in does to your thinking is unbelievable. It makes you feel nauseous. It makes you, and when we're feeling ill, we are angry and bitter and all of those things. And for many, for myself, the drinking was only to make this feeling stop.
Yeah.
Just make it stop. I can't do anything about it. No one wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to hear my story. It's boring. Nobody's going to believe it.
Right.
Everybody's got their own issues to do with. I must be absolutely fucking out of my mind. I'm just crazy.
Yeah.
Why am I having these thoughts in my mind? Why are these visions coming in, memories and things that are popping up? Why am I reacting to sounds and smells?
Yes.
And when we step back and understand that our brain is the most complex organ in our body and it is the least understood, and it controls everything. So if we think that this stuff is not just moving around and she needs help. She needs help because it's just too much. And we bottle it up. Fear. It's fear that keeps us here. And the best way that I can explain to it was, even getting sober. There's this brick wall, and I could see the life on the other side that I worked so hard to get sober for and to maintain and build back up. And in the brick wall, all there is this tiny little hole in the mortar, and I can go, I see you, but I can't get to you. And I don't know how to get to you. And it was until that raw honesty and giving my children, because it's that fear. All right, I'm going to own my stuff to you. I'm going to let you have your day in the ring, because that's the generational cycle I want to break.
Okay.
I was doing the same things to my kids, reactions and the responses all the same. My son had a my baby needed a transplant. I had a 3-year-old at the time, and we've sat down and we've talked all about that. And I also said to him, you have to understand that we did the best that we could at the time with what we were, young, and you needed to be cared for. We made sure that happened. You needed to be, and then Papa stepped in, and it was we had an amazing support system.
Mm-hmm.
Still had his stuff. You're 3, baby comes home. 4 days later, mom and daddy go away. There's a whole lot of shit going on in there.
Yeah, that's a lot right there.
And that's not hitting or doing anything, So
Yeah.
again, it can look different.
Right, that's abandonment though, and abandonment. Let's I want to put the puzzle pieces together so people get a full idea of the butterfly effect that happens with this, right? So you're looking at abandonment issues, which leads to what? Leads to trust issues, right? Can I trust this person to stay around? Now, again, when I say this, I'm speaking from my own perspective and how it developed in me. Now, so and be let me know what you think about it. Maybe you have a different opinion. I don't know. But because I know there's a lot of different people out there that's probably doing the same things and they may not be aware. Now, when I say this, I'm speaking from the inner child that had to go through this of being a man. Now,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? I'm giving just a different perspective, and it may be very similar, right? So, when we look at the abandonment issues, we look at abandonment, we look at trust issues, we look at different coping mechanisms. And again, I'm gonna keep it real simple, but very aggressive in their approach. So coping mechanisms such as balance, isolation, disassociation from society, right? Or better yet, major association in society, which I mean that most people would jump into society and go, this is, and not even say anything, just go, they be the ones going to work all the time, right? You know what I'm saying? I gotta go and work and things like that. Again, it's just another form of dealing with the trauma. Drugs, alcohol, promiscuity, sometimes like myself, even so to add this in there, I became a very violent individual. I was good at balance, right? You know what I'm saying? I got really good at balance. I was like, I'm gonna make sure not only whoever I run across won't be able to whip me, but I have a point to prove to life, right? You know what I'm saying? And so now I want to add this small element into it because, and to get your thoughts on all of that, but the shadow work, right? You know what I'm saying? Going back in there and picking apart those little things that was my survival tools that I needed in those moments that I needed them, and then watching how they changed, but also interacted with one another the older I got, which oftentimes associated with a lot of the bad habits I had.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. So
absolutely. And all of the pieces. And the thing is that this isn't rocket science. And the simpler we make it, and that's you get to the core of the fire. Here it is. Here's your fire. And all we're taught to do is just blow on it.
Yeah,
we've done it for centuries, and all that does is spread the wildfire. Right. You go right into the core, just get right to it, and it's going to burn. It's going to burn. We're not going to like it, but then it's out. And guess what happens? It starts to dissipate, and there is no more fire. So the dumpsters keep coming. They keep rolling right on through. It is my choice whether I douse it with booze and light the match and jump in. That's all my choice. I can't control what's going to happen. I can't control how other people behave.
Right.
From the trauma perspective, it's the expectations. Remember that disappointment is a direct correlation to your expectation. So if the expectation is always up here, I want you to do better. I want you to change. Guess what? disappointment time after time, because it's an unrealistic expectation. I cannot control you. So if I'm living my life expecting myself, and that's where it is, expecting everybody to adapt to what I need, no, I need to give it to myself. And that's not I don't view that as a selfish thing, it's in the end, it's just us.
Yeah.
I'm the only one I got to look at. I'm the only one I can run. Yes, I have lovely, wonderful people in my life. But what we've learned at our age, I believe, is that we're redefining what is family.
Mm.
Always was blood is family. Blood is family.
Yeah.
Blood is family.
Yeah.
That's your mother. That's your father. Blood is family.
Yeah.
You must honor. You must obey. And that's not right. And that's a hard one, that separation from family of origin.
It really is.
And I've done it. And it was the best thing I ever did, because my expectation to continue those interactions, that something was going to be different and something was going to be improved, was constant disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just no way to recover from that.
Right.
So it's a cancer. What are you going to do with the cancer? You're going to cut it off.
Yeah, and I want to get your thoughts on that, because I'm glad that you opened up the doors to say that, right? Because I think what happens a lot of times, people incorporate those things as a part of their safety net / survival, right? But now I want to share the dark side to this as well, and I know there's probably somebody out there right now that's probably, when I say this, it's going to probably rub them the wrong way. And that's okay, because it's something that needs to be addressed. A lot of times people will use these situations, these events, for attention, to remain a victim, because if they can keep the attention on the situation, they will always have an excuse to justify their actions towards other people. Okay, all right. So
and honestly, it is half of what I do in the coaching is saying things that you're not going to like. They're absolutely things that you need to hear. And when someone is playing the victim, you are victimizing yourself, and that's your choice. That's your choice. And I believe that that's where the difference, because traditional psychology and psychiatry, they're going to label that as borderline personality.
Right.
Okay. Now you've got a label on you. Now you've got whatever. And so, but if you start to identify, for me, it's the connecting the dots. I know. I'm sorry.
I think it's pretty cool.
So when you connect the dots,
before you say that, I want to let the audience know that Sarah is at the hospital. She's in one of the rooms, so what I'm saying, this is pretty cool, right? I'm saying, she actually honored me with
live and in action.
She's actually at the hospital, and I actually just so you guys know, I did message her and say, if you like to reschedule. Okay, so don't be looking at me like that. I did ask her if she wanted to reschedule. All right, I know what y'all thinking. Like, you cruel, Tony. I'm not.
No, live and in action.
Sarah's a beast.
Undertaker is
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted people to know where you were at. Yeah, I wanted people to know where you were
at. But connecting the dots. I'm glad you got that one.
I got it. Yes. All right, then.
When we connect the dots, why was I the dirty mistress? Why did I go for men that absolutely were unavailable, truly had absolutely no interest in me, and no, little hoo-ha, and that was the goal. But when you connect the dots as to why I did that, then self-forgiveness comes in. doesn't excuse my actions. But if I'm like, ooh, and then guess what? You know what? The way I felt when I did those things, not so hot. So that doesn't serve me well anymore. I know I was looking for that attention, looking for that emotion, looking for that intimacy, that love, because don't forget, women associate sex with love. Sex
Yeah.
equals love in a woman's mind. Period. End of story.
It's
And
attachment too, right?
all of it. All of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And it's been that dumpster that's haywire, that's so desperate for that, because we don't love ourselves. We don't have compassion for ourselves. We don't have any of this. And so we are desperate to find it somewhere else, because we believe that life is a Jerry Maguire movie and that someone's going to come and complete us.
Right. Right.
No. Man or woman, doesn't matter. You must be good with you before you can share yourself with anybody else.
That's very true. That's very true.
And we're running around, not broken, kind of like dangling.
Yeah,
We're
like
like, come again, come
yeah.
along, and you have this. And it's not going to bode well. So there's another expectation. I'm a mess. I expect you to adapt to my mess. I expect you to do something. No, we got to be done with it. And so that butterfly breakthrough, that when you transform your thinking, it's like that. And there's little bits each of the way. It's not all at once. Sky isn't going to open. Angels aren't going to come down. It's just, you get that little breath. And you're like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm not psycho. There's a reason I did that. And that opens up such a door for clarity.
Yes. Yes. As you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, like, and that's just one small step in the right direction. Mindset is everything when it comes down to it, right? But I think one of the biggest challenges when it comes down to people developing the right mindset is first becoming aware, right, of what they've gone through. Like, I often when I sit down with men, I tell them, look, when that trigger, because I'm going to say something that's going to make you mad. Now, when it happens, because the way that I help guide men is that you have to talk to men on their level. Right? You know what I'm saying? The masculine, you have to talk to the masculine energy in there. And sometimes you have to threaten it for it to push back. Right?
Absolutely.
You have to threaten it because, for one, and what I mean by that, now I don't recommend this to people unless you know what you're doing, right? And the environment is everything. Atmosphere is everything when doing this. But also be aware that you have to make it known to these individuals that this is what's going to happen. Because what it does, when you get hit with a trigger and it makes you mad, there's an emotional connection to it that you have to be aware of. And then once that happens, get what you have to say, but also ask yourself, you know what I'm saying, when you get to a point, ask yourself, why did I get so mad? Why did this?
The dots, right?
You have to start to connect the dots, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I do that. Look, I used to get mad a lot, right? And then finally I was like, what is this? And that was when I developed the technique when I wrote my program, Resilience. It was designed to really honestly bring it out to the forefront, to piss you off.
Right? Because when you're mad, you're
aware, right? Because sometimes in order to become aware, your emotions have to erupt, right? In order for you to start to ask the questions. Because for one, it doesn't bother me when you have an emotional eruption. It really doesn't. I look at you and go, so are you going to talk about it? Do you want to talk about why you got so mad?
And the thing is, and those, it is okay within, if you're angry and you need to express that and to get it out, but to get it out with somebody, to get not make, in a safe environment, because that is that verbal vomit. When we refrain and we sit there and we're like, nope, this is going to make other people uncomfortable. Nope, they're going to think I'm crazy. The thought, I can't even tell you some of the thoughts that go through your mind when you're living in a children's hospital for 50 days.
Right.
They ain't good.
No, not at all.
And when you get into that dark and spooky, that's when, my whole thing is we need to have conversations, which is why you and I align so much.
Yes.
There's, like I said, there's no cookie cutter. There's no, unicorns farting glitter. It's conversations. When you're in a place that is so uncomfortable that you do not like it anymore, there is a way out. And I think you and I, our goal is to let people know that they're not alone.
Right.
I'm not unique. I told you this the first time we talked. I am not unique. I'm just talking about it.
Yeah. When you and I both talked about this, look, there's nothing that makes us special, right? We're the two individuals that have gone through some of the craziest shit out there and just have found a way to not only address it, but now here's the part that I really want people to understand. Like, it was your gift. Just like grief is my gift, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's your gift. The one thing that made sense to you, which allowed you to be able to navigate it the way that you did, but also hold yourself accountable, find grace, but be patient with yourself, and learn how to forgive yourself. And the knowledge and the wisdom came through that. Not everybody's going to get that, right? You know what I'm saying? Some people, their healing process is to get them to a place to where they're healthier for the next individual that comes into their life. Right, so they don't constantly vomit on them, their hurts and their you know what I'm saying, their confusion and things like that. I want to go back to what you said earlier, right? You said something, and I want to bring that to the forefront. Look,
yes.
When it comes down to people understanding, not only the mental aspect of it, right? You know what I'm saying, but also understanding the awareness. That's majority of the battle right there, right? But you also said something that is, my phone keeps going off and they distract me.
Everything's happening. You know what? We're just rolling with it, babe. Everything is. I mean, things are dinging over here. I'm like, oh.
It's not like you can't see me. They see me and still call me. I'm like, no, you see me on it. You see me doing it. I'm live streaming, and yet you still call me. I can see you.
Things are printing back here. I'm just like, whatever.
I can see them watching me watch them, and yet they see me watching them watch me, and yet they still call me on my phone like I can't see them watching me. I know I see
this you. Is our life. It's just a rolling dumpster fire, babe. Don't worry about it. She's just gonna roll right on by.
I find it hilarious, but no, I want to go back to something, right? Words of affirmation. That's what I was getting at when I was saying this. Words of affirmation. Like, I want to add to that, right? Because I think I do want to say words of affirmation is important, but also learning, once you learn how to value yourself and love yourself as if you're worth as if you're someone who's worth being loved, right? You know what I'm saying? You begin to speak life and love into yourself, right? Your first words of having that spoken into you should always come to you. That way you eliminate the expectations of someone acknowledging you.
Right.
Acknowledge yourself first. So, and what I mean by that, like the first things that I do is that I acknowledge myself. I look at myself and say, hey, Tommy, man, I love you, man. I love you, right? And then I go, you're worth today, right? Because tomorrow's not promised, but I'm worth today. I am worth it. And so these words that come out of my throat, most people will say that's your throat chakra, right? You know what I'm saying? Finding this voice, finding this truth, which aligns to everything else. Now your throat chakra goes down to your heart chakra, all
Right.
and so
It
forth and
is
so
all connected.
so you change the energy and the vibration and the frequency and which your body begins to fluctuate throughout the day or function throughout the day. You're raising it in order to attract those things that you've just spoken not only over yourself but into yourself, because those words are bounced back to you, right?
And it is exactly that dialogue. And I have clients and they're like, well, I can't do self-worth talk. That's crazy. That looks stupid. Blah, blah. I said, those conversations are already going on in your head. They're just 100% negative. You're already talking to yourself day in and day out. Guarantee
Right.
you're up at night because you're talking to yourself.
Exactly.
And that's so we talked about this when we met. So when I got sober and I said out loud for the first time that it was my father that abused me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with my counselor and he pulled out a little laminated card of page 417 from the big book on acceptance. And so now I'm aware, this is how the 3A's, the A list came about. So now I'm aware of where this all started. And he put down 417 on acceptance. And he's like, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to get your day in the ring? Are you going to get you've destroyed yourself. And I was slowly trying to kill myself every day, drinking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because this stuff was going nonstop. And I had all this other stuff going on. So there was no time to do that. None. There was no me anywhere in that. And that's okay because I didn't belong there. You know what I mean?
Right.
The focus was on other things. So it just kept going and going and building. You know, when I wrote this book, I had to do my timeline.
Right.
And shit popped up, you know, and it just kept, and it's like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And my child, you know, the type 1 diabetes at 15 years old, after all of this, you stand out on the lawn of the children's hospital going, are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But I have a choice in the matter. So acceptance and accountability is my role of any nonsense that would go on within it, because I couldn't control my emotion. You know, everything's on overload. So you got to get it out because you need room for that clear thinking. Others need that. And so it's a choice. It's that do or die. Do or die.
Look, us Gen Xers, we're a different breed, right? You know what I'm saying?
We're all in and of itself. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because us Gen Xers, we was raised by boomers, but you know, now we got to look at the older millennials that we messed up too. We messed up. we messed up.
We screwed up big time. I mean, our generation of women dropped the ball. Dropped the ball on women empowerment. We dropped.
Yeah, you don't get to take all responsibility. Look, my generation of men, you think about this for a minute, right? This is the only generation that almost made itself extinct. Think about that for a minute. And for those that are out there that don't understand, Generation X was the one generation that almost wiped itself out.
Yep.
We
were destroying ourselves.
Yeah, like we did things like, because you got to remember, I'm sure that you remember this, you know what I'm saying, the crack epidemic, right? We had movies like New Jack City, Colors, things like that we grew up on. The Bloods and Crips were just now, let's see, mid 80s, all until the early 2000s. We were at war with one another. The GDs, the Vice Lords, right? The biker gang. No one talks about the biker violence, right? No one talks about, and people think that you know what I'm saying, things are crazy now. We had, this is back when the Aryan Brothers wasn't high. They had their own gang, right?
But I think here's what's happening. Here's what's happening is the Gen X, our eyes 100% are open, and we see the 1%. I mean, this is just, it's very clear how this goes. And all the things that happened in the 80s and the 90s and these were all calculated. They were all calculated. The violence against ourselves, the pitting of women against women, everything has been psychologically calculated. And it call me conspiracist. I couldn't give a fuck. Because to me, it's clear as day.
Yes, clear as day.
Day.
Very clear. I got a question though. There's something going around on TikTok right now. And I'm just curious because I have one. And most of the people that I know have one as well. On your left forearm, do you have a no, not that, because I think you may be hiding it, but you got like a mole on your left forearm. Every last one of us, yep. So now, so here's mine.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's mine.
Okay. Right? What's the significance?
So it's a conspiracy theory that they experimented on us when we were kids. But every Gen Xer I know has this. But we have a comment up here before we get into that, because we definitely Gogo says, how does one deal with what seems to be never-ending grief?
So, and grief is a wide variety. If we're talking death and the different, having been on the transplant unit, you have children that die very quickly and ones that it's elongated, and losing a child is losing a child. So that the never-ending grief is the need to verbally get out, whether it's via writing, so journaling, your voice notes, exactly what's going on in your head, no matter how crazy it is that you think it is. Right. And because what's going on in here is a lot more than when we actually put it out on the table and look at it. We perpetuate the swirling and the nonsense, and then it builds and it creates another layer and another layer. So, grief has no cookie cutter timeline, no anything. And that's where we talk about managing those triggers and identifying those triggers. So where I coach on a concierge level, where, you can instantly something happens on Tuesday at 3:00. And we're working on what exactly is going on. And you text me and say, hey, what do I do? And we can eliminate that situation right in the moment by encouraging you to utilize the skills that we've been talking about working on. Mm-hmm. And then that stops the dumpster fire from exploding. Dude, that's a win-win for me.
I'm right there with you. Anytime that we can address these things and put things out in the open and actually begin to deal with them, it's such a huge bonus, right?
Yes.
Because for one, that lets us know that we are breaking traumas, that we are breaking generational attachments that over time that has done damage to us, right? And so that is a good thing. So just like how we've set the pace for a lot of other things, we're also changing how humans look at the things that we go through, from having these difficult conversations, from being able to honestly sit down and go, I'm fucked up.
Yeah.
I want to also, add to what Gogo said about it seems like the never-ending grief. For me, right, and as being a man, I realize, and I'm glad that you brought this up. I realized that in combination with all of my losses, It is the consequence for my love. It's the price for love. And you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But again, I'm speaking from my own experience, right? You know what I'm saying? You can't have one without the other. I mean, I've experienced urban loss. And yes, I'll put this up here, and I think both Sarah and I can both jump in on this one as well. But to continue what I was saying, I realized that
That's an interesting question.
right, it is definitely an interesting question, and it's something that I've been diving into. So it's kind of I love the fact that Gogo just put that in there as well. But and to complete what I was saying is, for me, it was more of um, understanding that my parents would never be here again. And regardless of what anybody says, my parents are my parents. They were the first ones that ever showed me love. Right? They were the ones who taught me everything that I needed to know in order to survive in this world, and then some. Taught me how to take care of myself. They were the first ones that bought me my first pair of shoes, my first diapers, changed my butt. Right? You know what I'm saying? Mother's milk is something different because mother's milk is the first thing that you take in to nurture yourself from the tomb, from the womb. Right?
From the two.
Hey, hush your face, right? Depending on how you look
I
at
couldn't
it.
let it go. It made me chuckle out loud.
You let me out like a damn zombie. I can't.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But then, like I look at my younger brother, right? You know what I'm saying? And you look at the bloodline that was taken away because your younger brother is the one for me that you're supposed to teach these things so they can go out into the world to take over the place that you're at, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I take over father, right? Younger brother takes over me. My son takes over that, right? You know what I'm saying? And so I look at the loss of my son, right? I don't wish this sort of pain on no one. I don't. So now, so it's a never ending thing because as long as I live and as long as I am in this world, it's not a bad thing. Grief is such a universal connected thing. This is how we connect with one another throughout life. And that's not a bad thing. Use it. Use it in a way to have empathy and understanding of someone else's journey, right? Maybe, just maybe, if you're open to it, you guys can trade certain things and get to know each other on a whole new level from a more spirit. Now, this is how this segues, and from a more spiritual perspective, right? Because in spirit, you have to understand there are no bounds. There's only connection, right? And what I mean by that, you may share a religion with someone, maybe a culture with someone, right? Um, and grief on a spiritual perspective is far deeper than anything that you can ever imagine because it's a deeper connection that you have with the energy that is already lifted out into the world, right? You know what I'm saying? And you can have a deep connection with flesh, but that spirit, though, that spirit talks to your spirit, right? And that's a whole new grief because your flesh, your spirit that's trapped inside of your flesh wants to go with that, but it's restricted. So of course, it's constantly going, I want to go because your spirit sees spirit, right? You know what I'm saying? And your spirit is constantly saying, I want to go be with them. And not really understanding that it's still trapped within the body. But again, that's just my thoughts.
Right. I love it. And it spirituality and organized religion has become a very muddy area for everybody to get into. But it's because we've muddied it up. And I think we get confused with semantics. You and I spoke about this. My father was an Orthodox Jew. He was the cantor in synagogue. I cannot get on board with organized religion. I just can't. But I know that I'm not the be all and end all of everything. I know there's something more than me out there. And I'm very humbled to be there. But it is a universe and there's energy. And
Hold
all
on.
of, yeah,
So,
go right ahead.
give me 1 second.
Go right ahead.
I got Chris over here. I'm finishing up on a podcast right now. Chris, give me a second, all right? All right.
I love the reel. I love the reel, babe.
Well, I got so many people that schedule it in, and then when they see the podcast, they're like, "Oh, I'll put it right there." I'm like, "No, don't do that." So that's where we're at. But no, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. So, understanding, and this is what I teach my kids. You need to live your life to be the best human being that you have possible. And the only eyes you need to look into are your own. Those are the only two eyeballs you need to be able to get direct contact with. And, for me, having my son have had the rare disease and not understanding why, we all ask the question, why? And there is no answer. So I got to stop asking. But what I came to the conclusion of, and where I sit in peace, is that all of us, you and I, we were created from two cells, and that's it. And to believe that it is going to function exactly as designed, that they're all going to be, think of just the lunacy of all of this.
Yes.
And everyone's going to look the same, feel the same, act the same. It is not there. So these two cells, we don't understand how they work. That's craziness. That's beyond any scientific understanding. So to think we can go in and tinker around, and the responsibility that we're putting on physicians, that they're all knowing and that they can stop anything, we're stopping the cycle of life. We've stopped it with medicine and science. And don't get me wrong, I am a big supporter because I have a transplant baby, and I believe in type 1 diabetes who requires insulin. I believe in medical science and progression, but there has to be some sort of middle ground. There has to be some sort of understanding, because we're not granted this undeniable right to live at all costs to everything.
Right.
I don't know who came up with that.
No.
Why? And that's that spirituality and grief come from, is when we accept that death is a part of life. Stop making it the most horrible thing in the world, because it is natural and it is going to happen to all of us.
Right.
Not one of us can avoid it. Not one. Now, does it come, the grief and where it comes, and there's different levels. Losing a child and losing your parent are two different griefs.
Right. And we've talked about that. And you know what? We're gonna have to do a part 2. We're gonna have to do a part 2, because
I'm in.
Unpack on there. You know what I'm saying? And the comments are starting to roll in right now. And I have a gentleman over here. He's waiting so patiently for me right now. I appreciate that and everything. But sir, we definitely have to do this again. I love talking with you. You know what I'm saying? And so do me a favor, before I let you go, tell people where they can find you.
So my book is launching on Tuesday, March 4th, and you can go to thedumpsterfirediaries.com. That's it. Go there and you can get the link for Amazon and get your 99-cent copy and read it. And if you like it, leave a little review.
Yes. And Go agrees. We got to do definitely a part 2. I love this conversation. One last question before I let you go. I love this question right here. Now, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
My superpower is that I see very clearly, very quickly. That is my superpower.
Insight. I love that. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Let me know when you're ready to do this again. We're going to do a part 2. Love you. Love this conversation.
I love you too.
And everything. And so for everyone else who's been tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in and things like that. Thank you for the questions and comments. And always thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bring these conversations to you and allowing us to keep bringing you the support and everything. Guys, this is going to wrap this episode up of the Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. I love you guys. We're going to see you guys in the next one. Sarah, I'm going to message you here in a bit, and I'm going to be sending over the link for this episode and everything, so you can have it, chop it up, do what you need to do. All right?
I love it. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Love you, and we're going to see you guys in the next. We got one coming on this afternoon, so you guys already know we do a daily one. So we got more coming. All right. See you guys in the next episode. Have a blessed day, guys. See you. Peace.
Peace.